Yeah, that was kind of my first moment where I realized I was simultaneously better and worse than I thought.
Welcome in, everyone, to Understable Discourse. I am so very excited about today's episode where I sit down with Levi Stout. Easily, handedly, the best player we've ever seen come out of the Southern Hemisphere. I've been saying it, you've been hearing it, it's true. And I'll be honest with you, I go into these interviews hoping to maybe keep them to like 30-ish minutes and maybe add in some like extra edits of stuff on top. But there are some times when the conversation is just too good and the interviewee is so dynamic that you can't add the frill, you can't add the fluff. You just have to let the conversation be what it is. So this is a long one. Buckle up. 47 minutes of interviewing fun. And you're going to find out at the end of this that Levi Stout is just the kind of player that you want to root for week in and week out. Because he's 19 years old, but he is wiser than so many other people that I've ever talked to, especially when it comes to within the sport of disc golf. So without further ado, here's the interview with Levi Stout. All right, so Levi, thank you so much for joining me on Understable Discourse. I really appreciate you taking the time. I'll be honest with you, when you said 11 a.m. your time, I had to do a little bit of math to figure out what that meant for my time and make sure I lined it up. And I was checking throughout the day. I'm like, okay, that's 2 hours from now. That's going to be 5 o'clock for me. But thank you for being on. I really appreciate it.
No worries. It's always so weird with Americans trying to figure out time zones. I either have to get up, super early in the morning, or they have to do it at night. So I'm glad we could get this to work.
Absolutely. I think back to the first time that I got to see you play disc golf, and I think maybe a lot of people, the Americans got to see you play disc golf, which was back at 2024 for and I apologize if I mispronounced this, the Taupo Open. And that was, you got to go head to head to Corey Ellis. And I'm like, whoa, who is this? Who's this Levi kid? I loved it so much. And then we saw other events that happened there with like the New Zealand National Championships, and then Bottle Lake happened where you took down Luke Humphreys down the stretch. I think at one point he got pretty close, but down like 17 and 18, you kind of peeled away enough to give yourself some comfort. Thinking back to like where you started in disc golf, like when did you start playing? Because I know you're like 19 years old, so it can't be too long ago.
Well, that's the thing. In New Zealand, I'm actually one of the older disc golfers. Um, because we had quite a small disc golf community and we really felt the COVID boom. So, my PDGA number is 118179, and I got that in 2019. But, I'm in the older, half or third of PDGA numbers now, just because of the COVID boom. It's insane. So I started in 2017, December of 2017, with my family. We were on holiday, and one of my mum's friends was like, "Oh, if you need something to do for a day, you can try this frisbee thing out." And we bought catch frisbees for the five of us, and we went and played. Shot absolutely awful. Probably like 9 over through 9 holes, and that was with like really gentle pars. Like there's a 500-foot par five on that course. Um, and from there, we kind of just adopted it as the game we'd play that summer. Me and my brother, particularly, quite competitive. We're trying to beat our dad because he would always get us right at the start, just from having a little bit of height on us and strength and all that. So I would have been 11 at the time. Yeah. And from there, we bought a starter pack, an RPM starter pack. And in the next couple years, we probably ended up buying maybe 10 discs each. So we got through to 2019. 2019, I played my first tournament. And a couple months after playing my first tournament, we basically decided that we are going to start playing all the tournaments within, 3 hours of us. And one of those tournaments was Paradise Plates. And it was an 8-tier. It was the first ever 8-tier in New Zealand history. and I was the youngest person to play it at the time. So I had to get my PDGA number for that, and that sort of started you know, the official journey. That was the snowball started growing and growing and growing from there. So that was when I was playing juniors, and I kind of just kept playing juniors through 2019. In 2020, I had my first 1,000 rated round, and I almost won a C tier, a small C tier in New Zealand. Averaged like 960 for 3 rounds or whatever it was. And then from there, I just started winning in juniors more, moved up to MPO, and I guess the rest is history from there.
So, what was that moment that you kind of thought to yourself, I might be really good at this?
It probably came in 2020 when I had that tournament, because I was still playing juniors. I played juniors until I won a tournament overall, which didn't come until 2021. But I stuck with juniors, and in 2020, it was at my home course, and I kind of realized like 1,000 rated is pretty good. That's in my mind at the time that was like as good as it really gets, because I think from the amateur perspective, you kind of think like 1,000 rated is like Pro Tour, and then you get to 1,000 rated and you realize that that's not exactly the case. But that was kind of the first moment where I remember walking back. We had the paper scorecards back in the day, no PDJ Live. Um, Going back to Tournament HQ and asking, all the players that I was like, this guy's insanely good. And I was like, oh, what do you guys shoot today? And then I realized that Jacko, you might have seen him on some coverage as well. I think he might have shot the same as me that round. And I just kind of realized, like, oh, what I just did was kind of impressive. And that was the first kind of moment where I realized I could play really good at the game. And yeah, I guess I have been since.
Yeah. So 2022 is kind of like your dive fully into professional play. I think that's the first year, at least I'm looking here, that every single event you played was in the MPO division. And I don't think I have to ask how successful it was because outside of 4 events, you won everything. That's, I mean, what is that? What does that feel like to jump up into the professional field and just it feels like every time you step out there, you're now the guy to beat, especially at that age.
I don't really know, because in New Zealand, like disc golf community was so small that it was kind of, there's 5 or 10 people that I was playing against every week. Well, not every week. I only played like 10 events a year because we don't have that many tournaments here. But it wasn't a shock because I stuck around for so long in juniors. Like my first ever overall win was from juniors, and I think I averaged 10-20 for the event. So I kind of knew that I could do that. And when I jumped into MPO, it might have been my first tournament in MPO. I think I came fourth. Um, and that was sort of what I was kind of expecting, hoping, hopping into MPO. I was like, if I could get top fives, that would be pretty good. But I guess I just played better than I thought I would. Um, but the reason it wasn't so different was back then we used to just seed overall quite a lot of the time rather than by division. So it would just be whoever shot the lowest score was on the lead card. So I had some lead card experience from juniors, which is, I guess it's a really unique position to be in, because in the States, if you have a junior tournament, you're actually going to get juniors, or if you have an open tournament, you're actually going to get players in open.
So we now get into 2023, and that's where I've had some people go, "Oh, it's the first time he's going to come over to the States this year," and I'm like, "No, he's actually been here before because in 2023 you came over for the Junior World Championships, but while you were here, you also played 2 like legit Pro Tour events, one Silver Series and one event. So your first foray like into what I don't want to say I never want to use the term like the real pro tour, because I think everywhere we're at, there's pros in certain levels that are, um, that's what the places that they're there have experience with. But when you hopped on to the Dynamic Disc Open, what did that feel like? Because that had to have been a kind of an eye opening moment for what like the pro tour is.
Yeah, that was kind of my first moment where I realized I was simultaneously better and worse than I thought. Um, so I kind of realized that my putting game was like as good as it gets, really. I think I had some pretty good putting tournaments in 2022 and 2023. That was kind of before I learned how to throw the disc really well. But I kind of realized I putted like top 15 in the field or something ridiculous like that. And then I came 95th or, whatever the finish was because I just could not throw the disc well or as far as, any of the other guys on the Pro Tour. And it was really just like, it was like a massive step back. I could see with perspective, where I kind of sat in terms of international disc golf at the highest level. And it was the first time I kind of realized, like, if I just play disc golf full time, as in, like, do it every day and commit myself to it, I know I'll play, like, better than anyone in New Zealand. So I played DDO and played awful for for what I was kind of expecting or hoping at the time. Played Junior Worlds, and it kind of felt like I should have been playing better than I was the entire time. So I felt like I was putting pretty poorly, but I still finished two back of the lead. Um, and that was kind of it was kind of a big step because then the next weekend I went and played Kansas City Wide Open, which is, as you say, was a silver series. I played Kansas City and I cashed. So that was the first kind of thing where I was like, okay, I can definitely do this. I probably just need a course that you don't have to throw 650 feet on every hole to play good. And that was kind of like I'm of the opinion that you should only be able to play Junior Worlds once. Because as a Kiwi, it's so much effort and it's so expensive to get over to play Junior Worlds. Once I had my bid at getting a title, I was like, okay, I'm done with this. As soon as I cashed at Kansas City, I knew I was going to take it, and I took it. And I guess it was kind of a cool thing where I can say that I officially went pro on the Pro Tour, which not many people in New Zealand can say, because I might be the only person to have cashed at a DGPT event from New Zealand.
That's pretty cool. I wonder, I mean, how does that feel? Because, like, you have to finish really well. You got 29th place at the KC Wide Open. It almost is like you compare the two weekends. I just played Junior Worlds, and there's a certain feeling associated with that. And then you go and you play really well. I mean, the improvement from, just over the span of 3 or so weeks between DDO to Kansas City has to be so eye opening. Where you're like, man, I'm just ready to commit to this fully. And now you've kind of taken, like, I have a question. What was your max distance back then in 2023 when you're out there, chucking drives at Emporia?
Probably, probably only like 430 consistently. I would have told you at the time like 470, but that would have been a big fat stinking lie. Um, Probably 450 on a good day back then, but not Pro Tour distance.
So, I guess you would say you like the course, you like Bad Rock Creek over at Kansas City.
Bedrock is at this point in time my favorite course in the world. Um, because it's fun. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing course, but every single shot is a different challenge. Like, you can't just throw the same shot twice in a row, and I think that's a really interesting way to play the course. I like especially holes like 3 through 6. There's a stretch there that I really like, and I just think it's one of the most unique courses because there's so many positional holes. Like you only have to throw a 400-foot shot, but if you throw it too far, then you can't access the next gap. There's lots of shots that are like that, and lots of like L-shaped holes I quite like. Yeah, I would say that's probably my favorite course.
Yeah, I really vibe with that because when I think about my favorite courses to watch on tour, I would say it's probably in my top five. And I was super excited to see them bring it on as an actual full pro tour event. And then after its first year, even though it had the cutoff last round, that it is coming back on tour. And I'm excited to see the changes that they make with the course to try to grow it. But I agree. The number of L-shaped holes, the two shot holes, forcing competitors to have to throw not just one but two excellently, executed shots is something that we don't get a lot, I feel like, on the pro tour, at least at the same number of holes at a course as we do at Bad Rock Creek. So I agree with you there. It's a solid course. Looking at, like, you talk about how New Zealand, they don't have a lot of tournaments and stuff like that. When you saw the tour down under stuff start, like, that has to get you excited, right?
Yeah. Um, the Tour Down Under was pretty huge because it's not viable for me to go to the States every year. Well, it wasn't back when when the tour started. I was still in school when TDU was announced, so it was pretty big news for me. And getting to see all those players come was really cool. I kind of went on a bit of a like the States changed me. 2023, I go and play in the States. And the best example of how it changed me is if you go look at the tournaments that I played immediately after coming back. I think for 4 or 5 tournaments, my lowest margin of victory was 10 strokes. So it was just kind of a realization of, like, if I can hang with these guys, I should just do that. Um, I don't know what it was. It just kind of, like, the perspective just made me throw better shots when I got back to New Zealand. Um, I don't know if it was a mental block or maybe I just wasn't putting in as much time before the States, but that kind of changed me. And then TDU gets announced, and it's immediately like, well, winning events in New Zealand just got a whole lot harder. So when I first came into the sport, you could average 960 and win a tournament. Then through the COVID era, you had to average 1,000 or 1010, and then TDU era comes around. Corey comes over, Tall Paul comes over, Luke comes over. All of a sudden, you have to average 1030, 1040, 1050 even to win tournaments. So it kind of just, yeah, provided the motivation I needed, I guess, to push a little bit further. Because I think if that didn't happen, I would be pretty isolated in New Zealand for sure.
I think one of the things that you, maybe you can really attribute to New Zealand disc golf, when you talk about how when you came over in 2023, your putting was already, you felt where it needed to be pro tour level. Do you think part of that's the product of, like, the environment that you get to play in New Zealand? I mean, it seems like every time anything is on coverage, it is so windy, and so you're almost forced to be this incredibly confident putter. And do you, how has that shaped your game growing up playing in those kind of conditions?
Well, that's the thing. I think we've been dealt a bad hand here. Um, New Zealand isn't as windy as, TDU coverage would suggest. Like, we do obviously still get wind, but it's the worst time for wind is late summer for us. So that makes it worse. Plus, we're going to be a little bit more windy. But I think what the real value that I got from putting was it was the only thing I can do in winter because all our fields become like bogs. It's literally like mud all over all the fields here, unless I go drive out to one of the fields that's like near the coast, which a little bit sandier underfoot. They drain a little bit better. So it's really all I could do in winter was go out to the garage and just grind the putts. So I've always been pretty solid from C1 because of that. And I think it was just the easiest way that I could improve and stay sane growing up. But yeah, when I went to the States, I did putt kind of insane at DDO to get there. It wasn't like I had an average putting week and I was, putting well. I played with Adam Hammis in one of the rounds at DDO, and on the first hole I triple putted for bogey, and I putted so well that by the end of the round, Adam said I was the greatest putter he's ever met. Because I think I made, like 7 or 8 C2s that round or further. Like I made the drop zone putt on 16, um, which and I didn't, I have it on video, and half the putts that I made weren't even filmed, and I still have like a highlight reel somewhere, just from that round because yeah, like I was putting pretty well, but sometimes my putting does leave me. Um, I don't enjoy playing in the wind at all. But whenever a tournament comes around now, I kind of just hope it's Gale Force wins because I know that I get better. You know, I'm less affected by the wind than other people. So for me, I'd rather play in that wind and suffer through it, but have the results rather than, I don't know, the rain. I probably don't putt as good in the rain as I do in the wind. But that's because if it rains where I'm from, you're not going outside. Like it's cold. It's not just it's not just warm rain. Like we played in Auckland at the New Zealand Open this year. We had, just storms moving through where the wind would gust up to, I don't even know, 30, 40, 50 mile an hour probably just for brief periods. And then it would just absolutely pour down with rain for a couple minutes. But I was totally fine with it because like you could be out there in shorts and a t-shirt. I think, yeah, cold rain I can't do.
Well, as an amateur, I can definitely understand the feeling of losing your putting sometimes. Probably a lot more so than the pros do. When you think about like your game, you talk about the putting and all that kind of stuff, and as we transition into like your upcoming foray into the pro tour, what do you think objectively is the thing that you're going to need to like? If you were looking at what you would imagine as a successful pro tour player, and then yourself right now, what attribute are you working on the most to get to that pro tour level?
The first and most obvious thing is just my forehand. Um, it's a little weak at the moment. Um, that's something I will be working on pretty heavily. But I have developed a touch forehand, which I've never had in previous years. But I don't have the power forehand at the moment. So that would be nice to get it to the point where I can throw, like 350-foot shots on these high lines with overstable discs. That would be probably the main shot I'm missing. Other than that, there are some form tweaks I'm probably going to make before I go to the States. And like I throw far enough for the Pro Tour, but I don't throw far by Pro Tour standards at all. So it would be nice to try put on just a little bit of extra distance.
Gotcha. It makes a lot of sense. So it's funny you kind of say the whole power forehand thing because when I think about all the times that I've watched you play, I always get the vibes of like, and I know Isaac Robinson was mentioned by Nate Perkins. I also kind of feel like a very Nicolas Antela thing coming where the prettiest throws, it feels like for you, are always going to be those putters and mids, the backhand approaches. Like you're just so good at that, and it's something that you think about. Like, oh, those players also kind of needed to develop a power forehand. It's like a almost like a backhander's thing. Um, where does the confidence come from? I don't know RPM just as well as I do some others. Is it the Takapoo? Is that yellow putter that you're throwing everywhere?
Well, part of it is that um, they f- they just feel really great. Like I'm literally looking at a stack of like 7 of them in my room right now because I just love the yellow run is a different run to the rest of the Takapus. So it over COVID they had to source their plastic slightly differently, and they for the yellow run sourced it and it ended up being a little stiffer. So that run was the one that I kind of was like, I like that stiffness on the top, and stuck with it. So part of it for me is the feel, but the other part is my home course. The longest hole is a 300-foot par four. So in New Zealand, we don't have that many long courses. Like the longest courses in New Zealand tend to get put on the TDU. So you get to see the best of the best, but what you don't see is the fact that you can throw 350 feet, and on most courses you could beat me if you're accurate, just because the courses don't call for much. But it also forced me to just learn how to throw putters good.
I want to talk about the Pro Tour a little bit, but I have one other question that I'm curious about. What is the effect of the Tour Down Under been on New Zealand disc golf? It's been down there for a few years now. Do you find that there are more people playing? There are maybe some new courses going in. Like, is there any kind of effect that it's had?
It's hard for me to say. I'm not the most in touch with all the all the goings on in New Zealand disc golf. For me, like what I see with a lot of the guys that I play with, um, it's like I say, it just provides a source of hope because we all know we're going to want to play those 4 big tournaments, our biggest tournaments for the year, and when the winter months come around, you stop playing a little bit, and then it can sometimes be hard to get back into it going into summer. So it really just provides that wee little extra push that keeps us going over summer. Um, it's definitely drawing more eyes to New Zealand, which is great. Um, like even Francis Orange, he's getting asked for signatures now, but 3 years ago that wouldn't have happened. Um, it's hard to say what it's done in terms of courses. Um, like we're getting lots of courses in New Zealand as it is. I think that boom probably happens with or without TDU, but the biggest thing is definitely the eyes. Like there's just so many more people that are aware of New Zealand disc golf, and yeah, it does do wonders knowing that we are seen. We're not just throwing frisbees in the dark, essentially.
I like it because it's positioned so well, I think, for audiences who are just, you know, we're unfortunately we're spoiled for disc golf throughout the entire year, and then you kind of have this off season stretch and there's nothing. And a lot of us, especially us crazy people like me, I consume everything there is in disc golf. So when you get to a point where it's like, oh, it's December, like Tour Down Under is about to happen, you know that you've got 2 months or so of really solid disc golf competition that's going to be happening. So it just gets people, I think, more excited to watch disc golf at different parts of the year. And what I love is it seems like we've got more and more of the like American touring pros who are wanting to go over and participate in these events. But the part that's so cool is it doesn't turn it into an American event, if that makes any sense. It feels so wonderfully New Zealand in the way the events are ran and just watching the whole production. It doesn't feel like, oh, we bring Americans over and all of a sudden it becomes like an American thing. And I think you have a lot to do with that because you're just taking them down one at a time. Like, I mean, Corey Ellis had to join RPM because it's like if I can't beat him, I might as well join him. But like that's got to be so cool to know that you're a part of that. Maybe it doesn't feel like that because you're in it right now, but as you kind of step away from it to see how you had a lot to do with that perspective, that's got to be super, super cool.
Yeah, well, I think for me, I know what you mean. I think it comes down to the TDs and the culture that we've sort of developed over the years. It's a very tight knit community in NZDG, so everyone kind of knows everyone, and until the COVID boom, at least, it was the same, 50 or 100 people playing most of the tournaments. So part of it comes from that. We used to do 2 days, 4 rounds as well, which would really just encourage everyone to, at lunchtime, you'd all hang out at Tournament HQ and you talk about your rounds with each other. You have prize giving. I'm not sure. I don't think you guys do that on the Pro Tour. I'm not sure about off tour at all, but we're really big on, stick around. There might be spot prizes sometimes. We read out, usually it's like the podium from all the divisions, which helps, some of the AMs get some recognition or all these different things. I think it all adds up. And I think the perfect example of it was this weekend because we had lots of Kiwis on the card. So you got to see Sergei Sanin, you got to see Isaac Ladder, um, and Francis. Like, it was the most we've had for quite a while. And Alison Tweedy, she's from my hometown as well. So it was really just good to see a New Zealand course because Bottle Lake is fundamentally a Kiwi course. That's why it's my favorite in the South Island. And we showed up.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite of the. I mean, there's courses there that are like absolutely stunning, but I think I love the Bottle Lake Open because of the diversity of the course itself. It feels like there's like three different distinct moments where you could be watching coverage and you could go, "Wait, where are we at again?" Because it feels like you're on three different places when you're in the thick of the woods with all the pine needles on the ground, and then you're out kind of in the open, more park style. I love the course. Jumping into the Pro Tour stuff, because I know everyone's been waiting for so long to see you come over and play on the Pro Tour. I know you mentioned that Jonesboro is going to be your start. What on earth led you to Silas Schultz as a touring partner?
Well, honestly, it was because Ezra Robinson got married.
That's great.
So he came over and, we got pretty close pretty quick. We were pretty good friends even just over the course of 4 or 5 weeks. And I would have loved to tour with him, but unfortunately, like, congratulations to Ezra. But that meant I had to look elsewhere for a touring partner. And I've had I don't know what you'd call it, but a very loose relationship with Silas for a few years. Um, I've been following him since 2020 or 2021. So like before anyone knew who he was. And I remember messaging him when I was probably 13 or maybe a little bit older. And I was like, "You throw far. How do I throw far? Tell me your secrets." And he replied to me like, within a day. And I was like, wow, this dude's pretty cool. So we've also been in communication more recently than that. When I went to Junior Worlds, I met him, I think, very briefly. And, he sent me a random message just to say, "Hey, good luck at Junior Worlds." So he was kind of, one of the first pros that I sort of thought of in terms of who I want to tour with, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to meeting up with them and, making some content, maybe making some league cards, hopefully.
Yeah, and that's cool because I think from a content perspective, he's a great touring partner because we talk. I think the biggest conversation right now happening with like contracts and players, and you said you've watched all the podcasts and stuff from the different places. We're talking about what do players have to do to set themselves apart, and it feels like it's not just good play anymore. It's also, can you make content? So Silas would be a great person to jump on board with that. Do you like being part of content?
Yeah, yes. I can't remember who I said it to, but I said it to someone recently. I was like, there's no such thing as media obligations. There's only media opportunities. So, pretty much if anyone messages me and they're like, "Hey, I'm doing this podcast," I'm like, "Yep, sign me up." Whatever I can do to get my name out there more is, that's what I'll do. Um, I'm glad that I started my social media early. Well, not that early, but, I was probably 14. So I started up my Instagram and just slowly started posting and posting and posting. And the last sort of year, my social media has kind of boomed. So I think this stage last year, I had less than half of the followers I have now. I think I might have had about a third of the followers. So when I get into the social media grind, I really enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to doing that this year because I know once I'm in the States, I think sort of my ceiling for how much I could grow in terms of followers will just go up and up and up as more people, know who I am, and then they see a video of me on Instagram, they're more likely to follow me or more likely to engage with it. So I'm really looking forward to the opportunity there, and any clout I guess I could get from Silas, it always helps.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I think that the Pro Tour would be foolish to not give you at least one feature card at some point this year. Opening feature card of an event, it makes the most sense. And as much as you're talking about it, it better be the KC Wide Open. So I definitely want to see that. And you kind of made the comment a moment ago about getting onto some lead cards. When you think about what your ideal outcome is, like obviously we could sit here and say I'd love to win every event in the Pro Tour, but when you look at your skills, how they stack up, what level of performance are you expecting of yourself? Like, what would make you happy with it's the end of 2026, and I did this. Like, what makes you happy there?
I guess for me the biggest thing will be if I'm talking about like whether it was a success, it comes down to did I enjoy the thing, did I enjoy the tour thoroughly and throughout the entire time? And the other outcome that I'm really looking for is did you play well enough, do enough content opportunities, everything to make the tour a feasible future? If I can achieve those two things, that's big picture sorted. But to get there, I also do have some performance goals in myself. So I would like to, I've got a list of wee little things that I want to tick off, and obviously it'll start like make top 100, make top 80, make cash, top 50, top 30, top 20, top 10, and then who knows, maybe top 5, top 3, whatever. Those are kind of the list that I'll be trying to check off as I go throughout the season. And in terms of content, I would like to, grow my following. I would like to get to my goal for the end of the year would be 10,000 followers, which would be pretty much doubling my following. That would be like a very successful year. But for me, like I say, it's more so if I play good, if I, had a Gannon Burr 2024 kind of season, but I didn't enjoy it, then it's useless to me because I just want to come back to New Zealand and be home. So first and foremost is enjoy myself and, embrace the lifestyle, really.
No, that's great. I love. I think that Brian said it when he was talking to you on Jomez that you're a very intentional person. You've got all this stuff, I think, very well thought out, and it makes you, I think, different than a lot of players. And I love to see. It's like, yes, you're 19, but you're like laser focused as if you've been. I mean, you said yourself you're one of the older disc golfers in New Zealand, but you're talking like someone who's been a seasoned vet for a while. So I think between your mindset, your skill set, I wouldn't be surprised to see some legitimate, you know, incredible performance on the tour, especially at these courses that kind of befit your play style of being able to be masterful with the putters and the mids and super intentional about landing zones off the tee and these multi-shot stuff. I think you're going to have a lot of success there.
Well, that's something that I've had to do intentionally. So living in New Zealand, I wanted to play Junior Worlds. I was like, I've looked up to all these people, Zach Arlinghouse, Gannon Burr, whoever you can name that won Junior Worlds. I was like, that's like the first major goal I ever had was to win Junior Worlds. And I'm not American, so I can't just hey mum, hey dad, let's just drive 3 hours down the road or catch a couple hour flight and go play this junior world thing. So I noticed that I was different to a lot of the other juniors when I played junior worlds, because I remember talking to one of the guys who got close to winning, and I was like, oh man, great performance, but it sucks that you didn't capture the win. And he was just like, oh, it's all right, there's always next year. And I always hated that mindset, because as a Kiwi, it's like, well, it's not just next year, it's an entire year working for something, plus then trying to fundraise, working a job on the side so I can get flights to America. It's all these extra things that I felt like I had to do, or else going to the States just wasn't worth my time. So I've always had to be very, yeah, goal oriented, and I guess, yeah, focused if I want to make disc golf work for me, because I can't just waltz into a pro tour event. I actually have to, the initial investment is just way higher for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that sometimes we don't get to have that perspective, and we forget that a tournament is just down the road. Like the fact that I can hop in my car and drive 5 hours to Maple Hill is, or I know you said that you may until you play it, it could be an overrated course for you. But I, it's yeah, it's just something that we I think take for granted a lot. So it's great to hear you say that. When you so you're sponsored by RPM, and what is it that like I was looking through RPM's team list, and yeah, they got Corey, but like you're like the top dog. How you're kind of coming over. It's got to be a huge thing for RPM to now be able to say we've got our young gunner Levi, and we've got Corey, who's kind of an established player on tour, a major winner. Representing the brand on U.S. soil. That's got to be super exciting for RPM, and ultimately, that's got to be exciting for you. I mean, you're representing the company. Like, is that the kind of stuff? Like, do you think about that as well? Like, hey, I'm a representative of this brand, and I want to do as well as I can for them.
Yeah, absolutely. RPM picked me up in 2020. So I literally, that first A tier I was telling you about earlier, I met Jacko and he played with me at that event. And apparently he went back to Auckland and he had a conversation with Simon, the owner of RPM Discs. And he said, we've got to pick up this kid, because if we don't, someone else will. So I've had faith in me since the very beginning. And yeah, it really is. It's not pressure, because pressure's fake, but it's definitely a responsibility I have to go out there and perform to the best of my ability, not just on the course but off the course. Not just in how I play, but also how I present myself and all these other things, because it's really like, this is RPM's big year. Um, this would be pretty make or break for RPM in terms of getting international representation. So if I can play well, it will literally put millions of more eyes on RPM, and I'm looking forward to showing the world what we got.
100%. And I also really hope that RPM's basket makes it over to the Pro Tour, because I think it's one of the best baskets. Now, you putt on it, I don't, but I think it's one of the best baskets that we have anywhere in production. So
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you on that.
there you go. Perfect. So for anyone out there who's not familiar with RPM plastic, what is the one disc that everyone should try? It'll change their life.
Hmm. There's a few different picks that I would give for a professional player. Someone who's 1,000 rated or throws 500 feet. The Kortuku. It's a mid-range that's pretty overstable. It's what Drew Gibson threw. He signed up he was on Team RPM for a while, and that was his signature mold. Super overstable, super reliable, and like I've seen Corey rip them in headwinds, and they just don't budge. But they still go pretty far. So I was throwing one on hole 17 at Bottle Lake, which is 370, 380, and I would get it there comfortably, even with all the wind. So that would be my pick for a professional player. For an absolute beginner, I would recommend either the Tui or the Piwaka Waka. So the Tui is an understable putter. The Piwaka Waka is an understable mid, but it's a very fast understable mid. If you get a nice flippy one, like my mum used to throw them, she doesn't throw them so much now, but when she was only throwing 200 feet, she would throw it and she would just get these beautiful like hyzer flip to turn over to fade, like perfect S line flights with it. And then for the run of the mill player, who's sort of in that 300-foot range, I would probably have to go with a Pekka Pekka. So I only throw them for rollers, but it's a 9-speed, kind of like a heat, but it's like nice and low profile. Great for distance shots. If, like I say, you're throwing in that sort of 300-foot range, I would definitely put my stamp of approval on them. And then, as a bonus, everyone should have a Takapu. It's a pretty generic putter mold, pretty similar to the AVR or the P2 or, insert overstable throwing putter here from whatever brand you prefer. But it's just so good. It's just such a nice disc. So everyone should get one of them as well.
Perfect. Well, I'm gonna have to get one and do some content with it. I love trying new plastic and having it in my hands, but I don't want to keep you any longer. I thank you so much for being on the show. Before we kind of go, where can people listening find you and support you?
3 ways. First thing is I'm on Instagram at levistout.dg. It might be levi.stout.dg, whatever. You should be able to find me with that information. I'm on YouTube, Levi Stout. So I did some practice rounds for TDU with Eli Swanson, and I've just got some more filming equipment recently, so I'll be trying to post more YouTube videos in the next couple months. And the third way you can support me is if you go to the RPM Discs website, there is a signature discs menu, and any of the signature discs with my name on it, they help support me. So if you buy one of those, a portion of that money goes straight to me. So if you want to do that, there is a secret fourth way. I'm a form coach on Formero. So if you are looking for advice on form, you can also find me there.
Perfect. And everyone here who's watching, go to the Pro Tours posts all season long until we get Levi on a feature card. I want everyone in the comments going, where's Levi Stout? We want him on the feature card because we got to see it. But Levi, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. I think more people just are about to be exposed to how great of a disc golfer you are if they haven't watched already. And I'm super excited to see what you're able to do over here and just excited to watch you continue to grow as a player. But thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, gang, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Levi. Honestly, we learned so much there. What disc golf was like growing up in New Zealand, what the best discs to use if in the RPM lineup are, and his aspirations for his career and what he's going to be hopefully doing this year on the Pro Tour as he tours the United States. I'm super excited to watch him play. I hope this has turned you into a Levi Stout fan, and join me in beckoning the Disc Golf Pro Tour to put Levi onto a feature card, especially at the Kansas City Wide Open. It has to happen. We need to make it happen. So if you're listening, Pro Tour, let's do it. Let's get him on there. Do yourself a favor and make it happen. But thank you all so much for listening. I appreciate your time. If you'd like to see this the growth and support our channel over here, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like, comment, all of the things. You know the drill by now. But this has been Understable Discourse. I'll see you next week for more fun. We're doing an AMA on Monday, and we're going to have some more shenanigans as the time is ticking down now. The tour is upon us. So the previews are just around the corner. So go out there, play some disc golf, watch some disc golf, and I'll see you next week.